Hey guys, it's Sam, and this is my spoiler-free review of Captive Prince by C.S. Pacat. This is the first book in an adult fantasy trilogy, and it follows our main character of Damon, who is a prince, but at the very beginning of the story, there is a coup involving his half-brother who takes the throne, kills his father, and throws him into slavery. He is then sold to a rival nation and is gifted as a pet slave to a crown prince there. So the story takes off with Damon trying to learn things about this new world and try to escape his situation. So this book is extremely polarizing. People tend to either love it or hate it. I will say there are trigger warnings for a lot of things in this book. There is rape, all kinds of sexual assault, various forms of torture, pedophilia that is not shown but that is definitely implied and heavily confirmed, and just a lot of things that people might be very triggered by or might not like reading. So I would definitely go through different reviews and stuff if you're planning on reading this and if you are sensitive to any kind of harsher topics, and figure out if this is going to be a book for you, because I think that's one of the reasons why it is so polarizing, is that if someone goes in not knowing some of those things, they can be caught very off guard. I knew all those things going into it, so I was a little better prepared for it, if not possibly over prepared for it, honestly. And so those things didn't startle me or surprise me or bother me because I was so prepared for it. But if you're somebody who can't read certain things, definitely check out the various lists of trigger warnings about this series, because it is definitely very highly reviewed at this point, so you can get that kind of information if you need it. First, let me talk about the world building. I thought that the world building was very interesting in here because this is set in a homonormative society. There are a lot of rules about people having children out of wedlock, so there are a lot of relationships that are depicted as homosexual. There are a lot of characters that are more fluid in their sexuality. For example, Damon as a main character is definitely depicted as bisexual or possibly pansexual, and most of the characters are having sexual relationships with people of their same gender. I thought that was very interesting and kind of a breath of fresh air, honestly, because I've talked about before about fantasies that are very not creative when it comes to their cultures and about the sexuality in their cultures, and they make it just the same as our society or like a medieval version of our society, and I just think it's really lazy. So having a setting where that is not the case and it's very different from our own was really refreshing. Next, one of the big cultural differences is that every society in this world has slaves. So Damon comes from a society that also has slaves. All of the countries around him have slaves. Slaves are definitely treated differently among these different countries, and that is shown in very sharp contrast, but this is just a world where slavery is normal and everybody has them, and everybody has, for the most part, pleasure slaves. Like, it's a very common thing. So the discussion about slavery in here and oppression is different because it's set in a different society with different cultural norms and expectations. There were some elements about the world building that I thought were a little lazy or just not included. There is a lot of different political turmoil happening here, and I didn't think it was explained enough or shown enough. This is a fairly short book. This is actually shorter than it looks because there's like a short story in here and an excerpt from the next book. So it's a fairly short book. It's like 240 pages, and so you don't get a lot of time to kind of go into that. There's hints of that, so if you like those kinds of stories, there's definitely hints of more of that coming. But in this first book, I felt like a lot of kind of things were dropped because we didn't know enough about it and know enough about the importance of it. So I definitely thought that part could have been elaborated on a little bit more, and you definitely could have felt the consequences of actions more with that, because there, like I said, there is a lot of political turmoil, but you just don't necessarily understand it. Next, I'm going to talk about the characters. Because this is a short book, it is a little bit harder to attach to some of the characters, I feel, but Damon as a main character, I really enjoyed. I definitely felt for him. I liked that the whole story was in his perspective. I think if he would have switched perspectives to the other main character, we wouldn't have enjoyed it. He's kind of the antagonist at this point. I don't think I would have enjoyed that much because he is pretty much a despicable person in this book, and he's supposed to be like that. I knew that going in. I knew that this first book wasn't a romance. I'll talk about that a little bit more later. But he's an asshole. So I like being in Damon's perspective. He's a good person, and I like kind of seeing how he's navigating things and kind of getting through this very harsh society. The other main character slash antagonist is Laurent, and he is an asshole. That's another big complaint about this book, is that a lot of people go into this thinking that's going to be a romance, because at this point later on in the series, so I've heard, this turns kind of into a romance, and it's very well loved by a lot of people. So a lot of people go into this expecting him to be a romantic character, and he's not. He's an asshole. He does horrible things. He tortures people. He verbally abuses people. He's not a good person. And what I found interesting about that, and why I'm interested to read more of this especially, is because I want to see the character development, because a lot of people that I trust love this series, and I don't think they'd love something if it was like deeply problematic or whatever, you know what I mean? So I really want to go in and see, like, how is this character possibly redeemed? Because at this point, from my point of view where I'm sitting, I don't feel that he's redeemable at this point. Like, I can't picture anything that he would do that would make me like him or change my perspective on him. But he's a villain and an asshole that I like because he is done so well. He's despicable. It's done well. He's over the top and cruel and awful. So it's a good antagonist to read about, but again, you're not going to necessarily be shipping him with the other character because he's not a good guy. He's not nice to Damon. He's awful at this point. So definitely don't go into this expecting a romance in the first book because you're not supposed to. It's not. So one of the common critiques of this book is that this is like an abusive relationship. And at this point, yes, it's a slave-owner relationship. It's oppressive, it's abusive, and it's supposed to be. And that's one of the things that kind of throws me off about a lot of reviews that I see, that people say it's so despicable. It's not a romance here. So while it is a toxic bad relationship, it's not a toxic bad romantic relationship. So people are like, oh, I can't believe people ship this. Well, they don't here. And I haven't gotten to later books, so I don't know if I will end up shipping those people or if I will still hate Laurent through the whole book series. I could, obviously, but I definitely think this series should be read as a whole, and it's been recommended to me to be read as a whole. So this book series should really just be one book. Let me just get to that with the plot. So it's a short book. Like I said, it's 240 pages. The plot is pretty fast-paced. I mean, Damon's like constantly in danger, as you would expect in this like enemy territory. And it was really quick and easy to read. I thought the writing style was fairly over the top at times. I was buddy reading this with Mari from My Name is Marines, and she said that it definitely was like soap opera writing, and I totally agree. It's very over the top at times, but it makes it really easy to read. And it's not necessarily a positive or a negative thing. It's just the writing style is not anything to write home about, so if you're looking for beautiful writing, this isn't going to be it. But it definitely is the kind of writing style that's really easy to digest, and especially for a series that has things that are icky, that you don't necessarily want to read about. You know, it's kind of nice to not be like really super descriptive and beautiful flowery writing when you have all these horrible things happening. I think the bluntness of the writing really goes well with the bluntness of the story and the horrible things that are happening, because it shows, in my opinion, that the narrative is not condoning any of this behavior. It's not condoning slavery, it's not condoning rape, it's not condoning any of this abuse. It's saying that this is wrong, and the bluntness of the writing definitely works with that. But I will say that I think this whole series should just be one book. Obviously I haven't read the next 2 books yet, even though I do plan to, but it's short enough that it could just be one book, so I definitely do feel already that the series should be read as one complete whole and not completely judged until you read the whole, because there's a lot of room for, like I said, that development. I'm really interested to see what happens with these characters. I want to see if Laurent can be redeemed. I'm just really curious, like, how I'm going to feel about that. I don't have a lot of points on his side at this point, but yeah, I definitely am interested to see that. I do think that the series is harshly critiqued for a number of reasons that are valid reasons, but I see them being critiqued by people who don't point out those same things in other series. For example, the rape culture in this book is very similar to the rape culture in An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. Now, I'm just talking about the rape culture. I'm not talking about slavery or anything like that, just that element. So people talk about how like gross and despicable it is in this, and yes, rape culture is always gross and despicable, but it's a very similar rape culture in that is a YA series. This is an adult series. So that is not going to depict rape necessarily, where this one would, because it's an adult series, it's more mature content, etc. And it's going to show that horror more brutally. So people don't talk about the rape culture that much. I see it mentioned sometimes in An Ember in the Ashes, but they mention it a lot in here about how horrible it is. Well, yeah, because you see it, but no one really mentions it in there that much, and people that like say this is so disgusting and despicable will still like that series, and I'm kind of like... Or people talk about how racist this is because Damon is a person of color and Laurent is a white boy, very fair-skinned, always point out that he's very fair-skinned. But a lot of people that say that really like The Winner's Trilogy by Marie Witkowski, and that has a person of color as the slave, and then the white protagonist that is the kind of like slave or master. So, and that's a romantic relationship eventually, so like, I just don't feel like a lot of the critiques, while they're fair and they're valid, it just doesn't match up that like people will critique it about this series but not that one, so it's like, is that really the reason why you're critiquing the series? I don't know. I just think it's a little suspect. But I will say that I completely understand why people don't like this book. I completely understand why people don't want to continue necessarily, but I do encourage people to continue because I think it's pretty blatantly obvious that this series should just be read as a whole before you completely judge it. I'm really curious. I want to see like if these characters and some of the things that happen are redeemable. Like, can you redeem that, or is it not a redemption arc? Is it something else completely? I'm really curious about it. Another element that I could have done without with the writing is that this is a very kind of sexualized society, and Damon talks about being attracted to Laurent even though he hates him like a lot. So at times it felt almost like a fan fiction alternate universe, like that kind of writing where people are writing like an alternate universe hate to love relationship or something, and how he's talking about like how good looking Laurent is. So it's definitely very heavily implied that they could potentially have a romantic relationship later on, or a sexual relationship or whatever. And it's just like, it's really heavy handed. Like, it's not necessary. You could have hinted that a little bit, or even not hinted at all in this book and just had it happen later, you know? So it's like, it's just heavily, heavily implied. And you're like, okay, I understand you think he's hot, but like, he's awful. Like, he's doing awful things to you, which you're admitting, but he's like also saying how still, no matter what, he's like really hot. And it's just kind of like, it's really heavy handed. Like, a lot of things about this writing I feel like are very fan fiction-y. I don't know if C.S. Pacat used to write fan fiction. I'm not saying that fan fiction is bad. Like, it's just a kind of writing style that's very similar to that. So if you're used to that kind of thing, it has some of those kind of tropes popping up a lot. But overall, I neither loved or hated the story. I'm looking forward to the rest of the series. Like I said, I'm giving the whole series a chance before I kind of say what I feel about the whole thing. I want to see the whole start to finish story because it should just be one book. But I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. So comment below and let me know what you thought of Captive Prince. And because this book is so polarizing, I ask that people do be kind in the comments. You can disagree with people, you can disagree with me, but be nice, because I'm not going to have any awfulness in the comments. Like, don't come to my house and like make a mess. Like, I'm not about that. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye!